So hello, everybody. Good to have you on board today. This meetup will be about web scraping and regex in Python. This topic will actually be more like a story about the development of a cool application that can show you the occupancy of a Boulder gym in different cities. So our two PyLadies, Anne and Angelina, developed this over the last months as their Corona project, I believe. And for everybody who don't know what bouldering is a kind of a climbing sport. So just a brief info for you. And yeah, I hope I'm not revealing too much to tell you that it's going to be an interesting journey tonight. But for now, let me just quickly introduce our PyLadies community to you. What's PyLadies? If you don't know, PyLadies is an international mentorship group. You can see here we have chapters all over the world. We're here to build a diverse Python community and to support women to become active members in that community, to start coding or to participate in open source project or just to kickstart your career in tech. So because we all know the female percentage of developers is still quite low, especially in Germany, but also in other European countries and all over the world. So I think we have to change this. This is something I want to show you. It's a pretty cool project of another PyLady from New York. Reshama did this data science project, which just shows you how many chapters we are, how many active members, and it's pretty cool. She also did a video about this. You can check it out. Just make a screenshot of this URL here on the right. And other PyLadies infos you get from this URL here. As we are seeing ourselves as a bridge into the Python and tech community, and we're first of all there to empower women to become active coders and speakers. So we provide a respectful atmosphere to share knowledge, and we want you to tolerate this, that we have a harassment-free environment where everybody feels more comfortable to develop and also to ask all the stupid questions that are not stupid at all in the beginning. So please respect our code of conduct and maybe apply it to everyday life if you can. Maybe that changes something. So a bit more about the German Berlin chapter. So we do have monthly meetups. We also have like workshops, something like this today, which is a mix of a talk, but also a code along session. We also have setups events. If you're new to coding, this is something maybe that helps you to get started to set up your IDE or to like cover the basics of Python. And we also have like real life events, and this is a good opportunity to connect to companies, I always think, because we will be hosted in different environments and then you are able to meet different companies. Also the other way around, they can meet you if you're looking for a job or a new way of applying your Python skills in a different setup. Then this is a good chance, and I hope we're going to be back to normal in a few months, or at least next year. Keep yourself posted about this. And what else? How can you get involved? Otherwise, this is one opportunity. Another one would be just to help organize meetups or to do a talk or a workshop about your favorite Python topic or the specific area you're working in. This is also something we encourage, and we like to get you on board with this. And something else you could do is to get on our Slack channel. The easiest thing to keep this community alive is by having participants, so people who write about their findings in Python or have questions or whatever, new conferences, opportunities for jobs in your company maybe, or if you organize a conference and you want to share this, you want to share a few free tickets maybe with the community, be welcome and post something about this. It's not just us in this Python community in Berlin, right? There's so much other things going on. So this is 3 opportunities for you within the next days and weeks, you can jump on board. CodeRB is one of pretty interesting ones I want to point out, because Soumya will also talk just after me with our 5-minute superpower talk. And this is her meetup also. And who's talking to you right now? This is me. I'm Heike. I'm a software developer. And yeah, I'm a co-organizer of PyLadies Berlin. And like our first speaker is Soumya, and she's a more experienced member of our community, and also a founder of CodeRB. And yeah, I think the stage is all yours now. Let's hear why developers have to be brave.
Thank you, Heike. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah, I do.
So I'm just gonna start sharing my screen. All right, so I guess everyone can see my screen. Give me a thumbs up and someone.
Yes, looking good.
So thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Soumya, and I'm the founder of CodeRB, and I'm also a freelance Android developer. So CodeRB is a community where we love to teach minorities and aspirants, especially aspiring minority groups, to learn to code. So that's why I relate to PyLadies a lot, because we are trying to solve the same problem, because I saw that there was a huge disconnect when it comes to women in programming fields. And that's when I decided, okay, if people are make provide them mentorship, and they can, and also support where devs need more support initially. So we need junior devs and aspirants to move to become complete developers, or professional developers, let's call it. So this kind of support you can come and get during our hack evenings, or also talk nights. We talk about all basic beginner level stuff. So yeah, if you are interested, I can post the next talk, which is going to be next Friday. But otherwise, let's get into the topic of the day. And today I'm so happy to talk about a non-coding superpower talk, because I have been through all the ups and downs in the last 12 years of my development career. And now I feel like I can actually tell people what matters and what doesn't, and how something would affect if you don't hone your soft skills, right? That's very important when it comes to emotional intelligence development. Emotional intelligence is very important, so you could balance out and survive in IT, and still be safe and come back to work next day, right? So my topic today is how you can be brave, and being brave is a skill, and everybody can hone the skill and learn to be brave by just making small changes, and little confidence every day can make you more braver. And I'm going to explain to you why it will help you in your career as well. So let's talk about a little bit about why diversity matters. I know this feels like it doesn't affect you when it comes to being brave, but it does affect, in my opinion, because for instance, take my example. I lived my entire life in India until 6 years ago. I decided I got a job, so I would just move abroad and move to Berlin. And then I realized initially only I had the shock of, working culturally, working with 6 men in the team. And at some points, there was instances when I would be mocked or snubbed and dismissed. And that made me even more less braver. And I remember initially I would just sit and freeze at meetings and not say anything at all. And that's why it comes back to the point where you have enough number of female engineers or women engineers, and also especially people of color, and especially things like that matters when it comes to which teams you're working in. If you feel like there's not enough diversity, it's really hard and to speak up. And this also shows in studies that a critical mass of 30% is important to be brave and confident to speak up. And that's why if you're in communities or in your groups, you have to observe the group dynamics. And then if you're an immigrant like me, it would be harder to speak in a mixed group, a heterogeneous group, but that should not stop you from doing what is right or to speak up even. So that's why it is harder for people coming from different backgrounds to speak up, but always try to make sure you also talk about why you figure out why you're not able to speak up. It could be because you don't trust other people, or somebody is bullying you, or this could happen easily. And for me, the reason was that people were trying to dismiss me, and because of one person, I would just not speak. So you have to look at areas where you could improve and how you could solve this problem, because you have to then make a conscious choice and decision to actually be brave, and then you start working on it, because these things feels like everybody should know and you should come with the attitude, but it's not easy for sure, especially when you're working in teams where there is lopsidedness when it comes to diversity. And also when it comes to some dynamics, like providing criticism, critical about certain things could be easier for some people, or some people grown up in some cultures, than the other. So which is why when you criticize or when you have to constructively criticize something, you can actually, it's not easier. So you have to consciously make a effort to do that. And it is a good thing to provide constructive criticism, because you could be the expert on a subject and maybe the other people do not see the bigger picture like you do. And if everybody in the team believes something, doesn't mean you should not say no to it or bring up your opinion about why something should not be done, for instance. So this becomes harder when everybody else is voting for something and you're voting. But it is definitely easier if you understand the problem, try to articulate and provide the pros and cons in a manner that everybody can wrap their head around. And then you can point out why something should be done that way or this way. And to get to that point, you should be able to say things. Even though you think, oh, 5 people are saying something against me, it doesn't make it less important. Maybe you're the one saving efforts and time, and maybe something nobody else knows. So it is important to constructively criticize, even though you're the only person who thinks otherwise. So always make an effort, even though you're a junior, senior, any level of developer, or even if you're not a developer, anyone being in a meeting, sitting there, it is important to provide some constructive criticism, to the point where if you don't say that, if you don't share what you know, then it becomes one-sided, and everybody thinks that probably you're not an expert on the subject because you're not saying anything. And this is not good for your career. If you always say things and make it clear what you don't know, then people know that you know something and you're an expert on certain things. If you do not share this kind of knowledge, then it's harder for others to think that you're an expert, or even though if you're an expert, they won't consider you as one because they don't know what you know. I hope it's not confusing. So yeah, my point here is, if you know something, always say it out loud, be vocal about it, and make sure others know that you know these things. Because very easily at times I feel like other people speak more than me, either be in the meeting or whatever. It's like some people in speaking up, and if you do not share this, they will start explaining things to you, and others are going to think that you don't know this, though you already do, right? So this will put you in a bad light, even though you're an expert on the topic. Maybe you're just by not saying it could actually not be good for you. So similarly, like in the meetings, if you have to say something, not because just you have to, but if you are invited to everybody's time, and to contribute to the meeting. If you're not having anything to say on the topic, maybe you should nominate someone else who has something to say, because otherwise you are not meeting, right? So similarly, just speak up, and every day, if possible, just try to make like a small effort where you consciously think, okay, this is the time I know I'm correct, or I know this person is saying something, but I should interrupt, or I should say something right now. Do not stop yourself, and just put your hand up and raise your hand. And even though it's harder, it's not going to be easy. You might have to take a deep breath and just articulate things to the whole group, but still, I think it's totally going to be worth it. And it will change the entire way, like how people look at you, because it has happened to me as well. Though other people might be senior to you, but if you know a topic more than the others and you can help the team get to reach a decision, or you can facilitate team to actually do some more programming, come to a collective decision, that is already great. And you should always be taking up some ownership and putting your hand up where it's easy, something is easy to do, or you're good at it. Just do it, because if you always keep letting other people to do it, they will keep doing it, and they will keep getting the raise, they will keep getting the promotions, and you will end up with being other people looking at you like not the expert, or maybe they think that you're not growing in the company. Everybody knows that you are growing and you have something to share, you have something to say, and it is for sure everybody has something to share. And definitely do not hesitate. And by those few words, I would like to say, I would like to encourage you all that to keep speaking up. And even though if it's harder, just keep saying what you feel honestly is, what comes to your mind. So yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. And yeah, as always, looking forward to the next talk.
Cool. Thanks, Soumya. I think this was very encouraging for me as well. I never really thought about that actually. When you don't promote yourself, or once you stop promoting yourself, you maybe miss some opportunities because people then don't see you as the expert anymore. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. So yeah, let's have a 5 minutes break for everybody and for our next presenters to prepare.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about something about the next meetup, if I can.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to share the link to the meetup in the chat, but I think it's great that for newbies, especially if there's anyone around, I think there's going to be a journey. One of the speakers from PyLadies would be speaking about actually, and how she moved from places and came to Berlin, did a data science bootcamp, and now is a data scientist. And she has a journey to share with everyone who has this, who wants some inspiration. Definitely, it's a great talk, I think. And also another talk where there's a Q for a test lead who's going to be sharing QA advice and how to fail fast when it comes to features, developing features. So yeah, more developer related talk and inspirational talks. And I do find inspiration with this kind of non-superpower combination with a tech talk. I really like that also. PyLadies has this, and yeah, it's great if someone wants to come by. I'm going to share the link.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very important to talk about not just the tech topics, because there's so much more. It's part of our life, right? We spend so many hours at work, so it's important to connect to the
Absolutely.
people, yeah, and to the job.
And if you ask me, that is the greater part which needs to be worked on. Like, then like tech things are easy out, but these things need so much more sharing of knowledge, I think.
Yeah, especially when people are not aware of it. They come from a different background, then it's very important, I think. Cool. Let me also share our Slack channel link again. So if you haven't done so, you can just jump on this one, and then you're part of our even the global Slack PyLadies community. It's not just the Berlin channel, also the German channel is the whole thing. Cool. So if you're ready, we can just go on with the next part of the evening, I think. I'm gonna introduce our two next speakers, if you're ready. Yeah, okay. So we will be hearing this amazing journey, how Anne and Angelina developed the Boulder app. The first part, actually, we're going to hear today. So there were a lot of steps involved. It was not just web scraping and a bit of Regex or a bit more action. All this data that they scraped, it had to be processed somehow and shown in a web application, right? This will be tonight the first part, how you acquire the data. Before I say too much, because they're gonna tell you this whole story, I'm just gonna hand over and let you two speak about the journey.
Thanks, Jacob. Share my screen. Welcome to our Boulder Gym project. We are very excited to share this after many months of hard work. I'm actually a person who has a lot of side projects and I start many things, but I don't finish any of them. This project has been going for several months and it's been a lot of work, different kind of work, and it's been very exciting. And I'm very happy to have done it with Angelina, who will also get to know later. And it's very exciting because we've been doing many different things. We've been doing web scraping, Regex, then we had to see how to deploy it, how to do it in the cloud, several software engineering things, and it's still, even now that the app more or less works, even still we have things to do. So it's very ongoing effort and it's very fun. And I'm very excited to share it with you. This is a link to our app. So I'll tell you briefly what the app does. In Munich and in several other cities in Germany, there's a Boulder gym that in Germany they post the number, the percentage of how full the gym is. So before you go to the gym, you can check how full it is and you could decide to go or not. And because in my free time, not very successfully, but I give my best. I've noticed that when I've been going to the gym, I used to check this number before I went and I thought, oh, maybe it's 90%, maybe I will not go. But that's the only information I can see. So this number, 90% or 80%. There's no information about what if it was 50% 5 minutes ago and now it's 90%. And then it's been growing super fast because it's after hours, people are going to the gym. Then maybe I would prefer not to go. There was no historical data. And I thought, maybe I could access this website myself through a script, get this data, store it somewhere, and be able to plot it. And 8 months ago, me thought, this cannot be that difficult. Like, this could be done. And then here we are. And after many months of work, we can finally show a link that you can check yourselves in the computer, where we can see the several gyms. They have 3 in Munich and then in different cities. We can pick a gym that day we want, like for example today, and we can see how full it's been throughout the day. So we can see that now after work, people are going more and more. And we can also see the temperature. And then also we added some extra data, some average data. For example, how full is it on Tuesdays? Well, we can see that after work at 7:15, it's a bit fuller than in the morning. How about on the weekends? In the weekends, it's not so bad. It would be worse. We have some information that you can see. And it looks simple. It's just some data, some numbers, but it's been quite some work. Some background about who we are, as Heike said before, we can introduce ourselves briefly. My name is Anne. I'm from the Basque Country. I moved to Germany 4 years ago, and I moved to Germany 3 years ago. I studied on NLP, so a bit of data science. I started coding a few years ago on my own, and I've used it in several jobs that I've had. I got education, my master's in LP, and now I'm working as a DevOps. So you could say I can do many things, but probably not so deep, in any of them. I have too many project ideas, which can be a good or a bad thing, because I start many of them, but I don't finish almost any of them. And I like Indian food, techno music sometimes, and books. And now Angelina will talk a bit about herself.
Hey, so I'm actually from London, the UK. I am an active member of the PyLadies London group. Mechanical engineering a few years ago, did a bit of sales, and I actually luckily landed a machine learning internship last year and now working as a data analyst. I really love sustainability and fitness. You might also be wondering, how did Anne and I meet? If I'm from London and we started this project during COVID, which I guess leads us on to the next slide. Yeah, exactly. So the story begins when I was reading some Medium posts. I don't know if you guys have heard, there's a post, a page on medium.com by Towards Data Science. And a couple of Anne's posts were really popular. They were turned into audio posts. I
very, very popular.
Well, only the popular posts get turned into audio posts. So Anne was writing about her experience being NLP at university, and I really found it interesting. So I followed her on Twitter, and that's where she was talking about her Boulder Gym project. And I just loved how she spoke about how she collected the data and what she'd done with it and what she plans to do with it. Had my interest as well. I said, this looks really cool. And then from there, I think Annie said, hey, do you want to join in the project and do some data analysis and data cleaning? And yeah, well, here we are.
Hopefully she accepted. Next slide, sorry.
Yeah, so I guess one of the things we wanted to highlight about this meetup is that it's a storytelling meetup. We want to tell you about our journey, how the project started, the challenges, what we've learned. It's not a tutorial or a how-to meetup. We do have a notebook that you can follow along, which we'll share after our presentation. But at any point, feel free to ask questions. Yeah, and so in the next slide. Feel free to let me know if I'm missing anything out. So this meetup, we're actually talking more about how Annie started the project, how she scraped the data using Regex and Python. And then in the next meetups, we'll talk through some of the data analysis and data cleaning, how we built the app, and then some things like where the data is stored and how we're planning or doing predictions for the app.
Yeah, we thought we could fit everything in one meetup, but then I get all those. No way. We need plenty of those. We hope you're interested, and we hope we can see you in the next meetups of this series.
So the first part of this meetup is about scraping in Regex, like we mentioned. Basically, every 15 minutes, we wanted to collect the data from the different Boulder Gym websites. So every 15 minutes, we wanted to see how many people were waiting outside the gym or how many people, what the occupancy number was in each of the gyms. But for right now, we're just going to talk about how we scraped that data. So you might be asking, what is scraping? How do we scrape? Which leads us on to our next page. Yeah. So scraping is basically extracting the data from the website, and there are several different ways to do this. And it's basically the HTML that you see on a website. We can copy that using Python, using request library, which basically allows you to make a HTTP request to scrape the HTML back, and you can basically replicate the website, but that would contain a lot of information. Yeah, and this is where we use regex or regular expressions. So a few caveats that come with scraping is basically you still have to be careful. You can't be making 100 million requests per second, and you still need to respect the website owner. So one example could be checking the robots.txt page on a website, which basically shows you what you're allowed to scrape, what you're not allowed to scrape, if you are allowed to scrape. And maybe we could show you what this looks like for one of the Boulder Gym websites. Thanks.
You can see my Firefox, right?
Yeah.
So you can put any URL here and then a slash and then robots.txt, and there should be a file there. For example, we can see this for the Munich East gym. Yeah, so I don't really know what user agent means. I did my research back in the days. This basically says that the folder WP admin is forbidden from scraping. If you go to WP admin, it asks for some login data, so it's probably for admin people, not for scraping. And then specifically under this folder, there seems to be a file or a script that we can scrape. We don't know what that is yet. We'll find out later. But that's what it says. Everything in the website is allowed to scrape except this folder, and then inside this folder, we only can scrape this. The rest is forbidden.
Nice. So yeah, basically, before I joined the project, Anne did the research on each of the websites to make sure that we were allowed to scrape the data first. Yeah,
and legally sued.
I mean, I guess there are also some questions that come off this, like, what do you do if the website says you're not allowed to scrape the data, or what happens when the HTML of the website changes really often, because that's what we're scraping. But these questions will be answered throughout the meetup. Yes.
Yeah, so how I started with this, I can tell you the first steps that I did. In the beginning, when I thought this would be easy, I said, I have no idea what I was getting myself into. I searched for in Google Python scraping. How can I? That's the language that I know best. And I came across Scrapy, the library that it's apparently very commonly used for scraping, which included a cloud service. So it means that I could keep the script running all the time so that I could get the data every 15 minutes. And it's simple. It had a good documentation. It's easy to use. So I started using that, reading the documentation, trying to get the library work for my code. And I have to say it took a lot of time, maybe because of my lack of experience with APIs or with different libraries. Also, there were some parts which were not so good documented, but don't tell them that. And it took some time for me to get this library running, and I spent a lot of time on it. In the end, I managed. For this library, you need to have your code project in a specific format. You need a specific folder, and you need the script under that folder. There's a bunch of things you have to do for this library to work. In the end, I managed to make it work. I managed to make it work in the cloud. So the project was running and I was getting data every 15 minutes. But every time I wanted to change something, I had to spend a lot of time and I'll do a lot of trial and error trying to understand how this works. And in the end, I realized it works. Technically, it works, but it's too much. There's so many options that I can do with this that I don't need for this project. And then I realized that a regex would be enough. I don't need all that service and all the amazing things that this library does. It's very amazing, but I don't need all of that for now. And it's very complicated to change any little thing. So I switched to a regex in the end, and then to fix the cloud part, to keep the script running all the time. We will tell you that later in the meetup. But yeah, lesson learned. as an advice for other people or for my future self, I would say that when you start a project, start simple, start small, use the things that you know. Don't start using any complicated thing that you don't know, because that would be an extended challenge. Use the tools you know, make those work for you, make it simple. If you see that you need more functionality or that it doesn't work well enough, then you can Google and you can probably find something that works specifically for what you want. But in my experience, starting with something complicated in the beginning, it's not a good use of your time. I spend a lot of time on it. But yeah, so then I switched to Regex, and this is where we thought that it could be a good exercise for this meetup, an exercise to scrape and use Regex. We will share information, some hints, and then you will scrape data from Boulder and gyms, and you will use Regex to get the information we want, so the numbers that we want. If you have experience with Python, I encourage you to not read the hints and do the challenges yourself, either Googling or with your own knowledge. If you are more new to Python, we put a lot of hints. Of course, if you are stuck, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask us in the chat or unmute yourself or in any other way. We hope you like the notebook. We try to put a lot of hints and try to make it interactive. So coding time. We will share the notebook now. Okay, do you have the notebook? The link? Maybe I have it.
Yeah, 1 second. I'll share it.
Does anyone have any questions until now? Is it clear how we do the scraping part? Well, not scraping part, but is it clear the intention of what we've done? If you have any questions, feel free to ask before we start.
Yeah, so this is the link to the Google Colab notebook. And
you see it in my screen?
I think that's the link to the presentation.
that's true.
Yes, we both love bouldering.
I think Angelina better than me, but I've only actually done bouldering, so more lower altitude. Angelina, I think she's done more hardcore stuff. No, I think you have.
The picture in my introduction was actually climbing up Norway at Trolltunga, if anyone's heard of it. It's the mountain where it looks like a tongue, troll's tongue is sticking out of the mountain.
The thing I've climbed has been the 2 meters of my gym. Let's ask the question. I'm surprised Regex is easier than Scrapey. If you used to Scrapey, then it's not, right? But if you don't know any of them, I would say Regex is easier, at least for our use case. What we do is very light scraping. We only take data every 15 minutes. More hardcore scraping involves getting some that link through various subdomains in the website, and it can be much more complicated than we do. In the case that you use more strong scraping, then maybe the library scraping works better for you. You can share the link.
All right, yeah, now we have the link.
Can you see my screen with the notebook?
I can see it at least.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the first thing you should do is here on the top right, there should be a connect button, or you could see this, which means it's connected. If it's not connected, then connect it so you can run the stuff. Yeah, and the goal of this exercise is that you do it on your own pace. If you're faster, then you're faster. If you're slower, you're slower. We put a lot of information that you can read, or you can skip if you don't want to read. These are the 6 gyms, the 6 links for the Unix that we've been using, for the gyms that we've been using. For example, if we run this, we can see that it's loading for some reason. And then we save the variable, the URL summer 0. So the first one, we save it into the website variable that we use it later. And then first task is to locate the data source to find where we're going to get the data from. So in this case, it's going to be one of these URLs. On the top part, there's a banner, a header with a number. In this example, it's 2%, because I think I did this at night and it was not full at all. And something we didn't mention is that because of Corona, they have a maximum capacity. So in normal scenarios, the slider will go from left to right. But because of Corona, they need to maintain some distance. So they put a limit on the number of people that can enter the gym, which is this thing here, Corona maximal level. And once the occupancy reaches that number, so 100% of the Corona capacity, then people have to wait. And this project, we're going to show you how to obtain those two numbers, the percentage of occupation and number of people that are waiting. You can read all through this if you want. You have the link, and then these are the hints that you can expand to do each task. Any questions, any problems? Is the notebook running for you?
Yeah, for those who work the first time with those notebooks or Colab itself, you do have to make a copy of this project first in order to be able to do anything. So you cannot work in Ant's copy, you have to make your own copy and then you can go crazy with the code.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I only looked at this website Boulder Munich, and yeah, it always displays like this bar, but is it also it's only for websites who are showing their capacity? It's not like, and Google has also like the same tool, but they are just scrapping us for our location data. And or do you have any idea maybe how to scrap data from other websites where they don't show like this bar graph?
I think some of the Berlin gyms also show occupancy in some way, maybe not with this bar, but with some other way.
Some of the Berlin gyms do, they have the bar or they have other numbers. But if those informations are not shown or somehow delivered in the background for a shop maybe also or a gym, then you cannot get hold of it at all. This is true. It needs to be there somehow in the HTML or like even visible. Otherwise, there is no chance to get it.
For example, the Frankfurt gym, for some reason, maybe in Frankfurt they have different Corona measurements. They don't have this banner. They have a click and climb system. You have to make a booking, and then they don't need to show it because only the people who book the slot go to the gym. So in which case, there's no data for Frankfurt, so we cannot scrape it. I thought of using the Google scraping information. I think you mean by Google Maps. At least that's what I saw. You can see like some overview of how full it is throughout the day. I think Google is not so friendly with using their information. You have to pay for the API, I believe. Maybe in the beginning you could use it, but I think nowadays if you want to use Google Maps API, you have to pay. And as from what I've heard, I don't think it's very cheap.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's another question. It will let Boulder Gym know we're doing this. They should love what you're doing. But at first I was afraid that I was doing something illegal. So I didn't want to tell them. But then when I saw that it's actually okay to scrape, then I think maybe I'm a perfectionist. I didn't want to show anything before there was anything to show. Now that with Angelina, with all these months of work, now we have an app that works, doesn't break. And now, we posted it in our Twitter accounts. I don't think the gyms have a Twitter account. But
yeah, sometimes they do, but maybe they get in contact and want to have the app though. But I think it's very important to cover the legal part here as well. That's true. To not go wild on this. This is actually, sometimes something you can do, and you maybe help little businesses with this or something. But you have to cover the legal side and be sure that's something you can do, and you're not overstepping something. we don't want to encourage this here.
No. I thought the Boulder team, the coders can do this themselves. I mean, it's not a very complicated thing. If you're working for the Boulder team and you have the data already, you can store it and do it yourself. But I thought it would be a fun side project for us to learn all kinds of things, from web scraping, from Regex to cloud deployment, data analysis, machine learning even. It's a very complete project.
Yeah, it involves a lot of steps, and I think yeah, if you have the patience and the time, it's very good for self-learning. Best way, actually, I think, is to get a hands-on experience. So, like, if you find an issue or if you want to know something, make your own project out of it, and that's the best way to learn, because then questions come up and you reach out to the community. You find other people like yourself that you can learn together or program together, and share experience and share a different point of view. Yeah, so best way.
Also, if there's anyone here who thinks that Angelina and I are experts in all of this, we are not at all. We didn't know how to do things when we started doing it. We use the power of Google and documentation to learn all this stuff, which is why some of the tasks in the exercise are Googling or finding things out. Because, for example, the request library, sure, I knew the name before, but I have never actually used it. And in coding, very often, it happens that you want to use something, but you don't know how. And it's very important to know how to search for information. So I don't know where everyone is in the exercise. The first task is to be able to find the information in the HTML. In the website, you can do this with the browser developer tools. At least that's the way I know. If anyone knows any other way, then it may be possible. Maybe possible that I'm doing it wrong. But in scraping projects, what I do first is to go to the web page, open the developer tools, and find the information I want in the HTML.
Bye, Les.
Bye, Les, thanks.
See you at the next meetup. So
bye. Thank you. I appreciate that.
sure.
So is anyone struggling to find the data in the web page HTML? So task 1. Which silence means you are found it.
If we take that as a no and everyone's whizzed past the first step, yeah, I guess so the next task is actually using the requests library to actually scrape the data from the website. Has everyone, maybe we could get some hands up of people who didn't use the hint, so we can understand.
People who've done it, what's the function here to scrape the data? It's a Googling task. This kind of thing is not something that you know, that you learn in school or something. It is something that you Google. You do it once, you copy paste. Second time, you also copy paste, and the 5th time, you know. But that's how these things get learned. Does anyone want to share the request function to obtain the HTML?
I think an interesting thing also is to see what the request library actually can give you. It's not just the whole content, it's also the header of a website or of a page, and several other things like a return message or return a code. This is something you can play with to just ping the website, and then you get the code back, so you know it's working or not. But you're not ending up with a huge amount of text. That's an interesting first step. And then once you know, you get the 200 to 200, then you're fine. You have a positive reply, positive ping, and then you can start working. And let's see. What would you use?
Does anybody have any preferences? Would you like us to walk through the notebook, or are you happy to be walking through the notebook yourselves and ask questions when you're ready?
I just had my headphones off because when I read, I can't listen and reading at the same time. That's my brain capacity doesn't allow it. But if I have any questions, I will ask them.
That's great. Thank you.
So this is just a way to save the data in a list, like an array, just all together. This is a way to save the first one. In Python, you start with number 0. Number 0 in a list is the first one. So after this, the variable websites has the value of the first element of this list, which is this. And we will use this data to scrape it. That's just one way to get the URL, one way to get the link. Locate the data source. The website. Data that we're looking for, where is it? Is it in the middle of the page? Is it on the bottom, the top? So it's here, right? 81. What I did at first, and that's something that I learned recently, is that you can click on the data you want, right click, inspect, and the browser, either Firefox, Chrome, or Opera, or any other browser you use, will take you to the HTML part of this information. So this is the code that makes up the website. All the images and all the fonts, all the text comes from here. And here we can see the number 81, the number that we want. So this will be one way to locate the data source. If you click anywhere on the website, anywhere, click in inspect, you see the whole website and you do not find the information. Here you can search it. What are we looking for? Are we looking for, I don't know, the courses? So in German, Kurse, we can search and we'll find some information. For example, in this case, we want to find the 81% information, so we can search for 81. And then we'll probably find many things that we're interested in. We can click again, click enter again, and then we'll find something that looks good, which is this one, 81%. So once we scrape this website with the request library, we're going to get all of this big HTML. And from all of this huge pile of text, we're going to get this information. How to do that, we'll see that later. But this is the number we want. And it's surrounded by all of these things. This div section on HTML, which belongs to a class of crowd level tag and crowd level pointer. So it's going to be important because this class of crowd level pointer is the one that points us to how full it is. So it's important to know. So we can find a number here, and then for the other number, the number of people who are waiting, this will appear here, which now it doesn't appear because the gym is not full. People can still go into the gym. We only get to see this part when it reaches 100%. Right now we can't, but as a hint, I can tell you that the way they put this information is Boulder. So Boulderers are waiting to enter. And this is, in this case, deactivated because the capacity is not reached. So they don't show this information, so it's disabled. This would be the place where we would find this information. So there would be a number here, like 1, 2, 3 people waiting to enter. And this would be in a section of the class crowd level stop, which is important to notice because locating this part in the big HTML string will lead us to finding this information. It's something that when you scrape a website, you have to have a way to identify the information you want. I'm not an expert in scraping, I'm not an expert in regex, but this is how I do it. To find something that is unique. In this case, it's this class, crowd level stop and crowd level pointer. With regex, you access that, and then once you have that smaller piece of text, then you find the number you want. You could say, why don't we use the other class, crowd level tag? That's also a class. So we could use that. But they use this class for many things. They use this class for this section, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but they use it here. They use crowd level tag here too, and they might use it in other places. In this case, we're looking for something unique, something that directly points us to the information we want. Because if we find 20 results, how do we know which is the one that we want? It might happen that in the website you're trying to scrape, there's no other way, there's no unique identifier. In that case, you're gonna have to do a little bit more work to find your information. In this case, we're lucky that the information we wanted was in a folder that we could have a class name that was unique. So crowd level stop for the queue and crowd level pointer for the occupancy number. And we will use this class, we will use this text to find the information later. That would be the first task.
How would you now use the request library
clear
to find
any
this?
questions? Sorry?
And how would you now use the request library to find this information, to get it automatically from the website?
Well, the request gives you the whole HTML, as far as I know. The request makes an HTTP request. You get a response, HTTP response. So there are 200, which means okay.
Should we go through this in the notebook to show how it looks like?
Are there any questions about the first task? Okay. So now that we've done a visual exploration of what we want, we can use the Python library to find it. Angela, do you want to take over this part?
Yep, so with the requests library, we can make several different types of requests. And this is where our Googling skills come in. But for the purpose of explaining how we're doing things, what we're going to do is we're going to use a GET request, which basically, when you want to scrape a website and you want the data from the website, the GET request only allows you to take data from the website. And what we'll see when we actually run the correct line, so where we have the line web HTML equals requests give me HTML brackets website, this is where we change give me HTML to get with the website or a URL dot text. And this is just the way that the library works. It's the library syntax. And what we'll see is we've now got the whole website. So what we saw when we went into the development mode, where when we hovered over the 2% or the actual occupancy, yeah, everything here will be scraped into our notebook. And let us know if you have any questions at this point. Maybe Anne, if you type in, I mean, it's in the solution, but if you want to type it in so everyone can see.
So with the get function, you get the whole response. We can see what this gives us. His response 200, which for HTTP means it's okay, the correct request, but where's that information? This is a specific, a bit complex Python object. It's not just a 200 number, there's more information in it. And with Googling or searching in a search engine, I found that putting this dot text, you would find the actual text, the actual HTML. So if we do this, we get a lot of things. The code that they use, also our information will be in there somewhere. This is the whole HTML. When you are in the website and you click right click and then right click and then view page source, you see the same thing, the whole HTML. It just looks very complicated to read. So when we do this line, we get the HTML of the website, which is a lot. Next step is how to filter it, how to obtain the numbers that we want using Regex. There's some other ways to do this with scraping. You can, I think, iterate throughout the HTML, but it's a bit complicated for me to understand.
Maybe it's also worth explaining, in case anyone watching this back or even now has any questions about the requests library, but it's worth explaining that these requests is basically, it's all about APIs. And what that is basically how we're extracting the data from the website. I don't know if anyone here wants us to explain APIs a bit more. But we're happy to, or we can move on to the regex task.
Yeah, let's show the regex task, I think, because we promised it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, so in the notebook, Anne linked to a great resource that it's like a tutorial that you can walk through to actually learn regex. Because it's very easy to Google the regex that you need and not really understand it. It might not be efficient. You might come back to it and just completely forget what it means. And then you might be scraping the wrong information from the website without realizing.
Yeah, Regex is something that is not dependent on Python. You can use Regex with any programming language. It's just a way to filter out text. If you have a piece of text and you want to find something specific in it, like if you have a sentence and you want to find a word that comes after a word, you can use Regex for that. And you can buy books about it if you want. You can watch online courses about it if you want, or you can find a tutorial and learn it. Sometimes it's tempting to just Google the specific regex you want and find it. And I don't think there's anyone regex, but I think it pays off and it's useful to learn the basics of it. So you can capture some basic things, and then if you're using a complicated regex, you can Google for that and get more support.
Yeah, let's see how you can
Should we
apply
go through
it.
the tutorial?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious.
Angelina.
About everybody else.
Angelina, what should I type?
So here we can start typing. So the top right hand of the corner, we can see the lesson notes, which basically kind of gives us hints about what to type. So if we start typing the alphabet, and also if you continue typing, you can see that the actual X. Yeah.
In the exercise, we can see what we want to match and what we want to not match. Because we want to match all three of them. So with A, we match all three of them, so it's correct. Or we can be a bit more specific. Angelina?
B.
B.
C.
And C.
Which still matches all three of them.
If we type something else like D, then we don't match the last one. So we still want to match that one. So the thing that these three texts have in common is A and C. We can do the same thing with numbers. So digits also work. 1, 2, 3. We get all three of them.
Yeah, now it gets complicated here. Very interesting. Should we see how we can apply this on our Boulder website in the notebook? Because I think there's also a lot more around it than just to find the matching characters. For me, it was always a bit challenging also to find the right function from the regex library, because there's actually other different ones that just match a single occurrence of a word or letter, or one that is collecting all the matches. So there you can actually also use this library in a different way. Yeah, let's see. How did you use it on this big chunk of information from the web? I mean, HTML page is like, it's not just a letter, it's so much more, right?
Yeah, it took me a while, to be honest. I put here the section, not the whole thing, but the section. So the class that we mentioned earlier, and all the things inside it, where we can find the number. The regex, if you don't know it at all, it can be a bit complicated. What I do first is detect this, so to get that part, and then after this string, there will be a bunch of things which I don't care about until I find this one, this number in this specific style. It's a bit complicated. That's why I put a lot of hints. I think if people here don't know much about regex, they're not gonna understand this, unfortunately, much. We can say that
yeah, you need to find the key element that will not change to make your regex work, and it should be very close by to the element you want to find or extract.
So, for example, we can take this. What is easier that we can do in the Meetup. I think we have scheduled too little time for this notebook. As always, this always happens, but when you schedule time, it's always too little. But we can do this one interactively. So we want to find the number here, which if you scrub the data, the website right now, you're going to see something like this, which means some way of saying 0 because there's no one waiting. This link is very useful to test regex. It's called regexr.com. We can copy our thing here, our text. We want to find the pattern. And then here we write the regex that we want to find. In this case, we want to find this number. It can be this string thing, or it will be a number. How do we get a specific piece of text like this? Well, we know that after whatever comes here, whatever it is, there will be this part. This part is constant. It's always there. So we can write this here, and it will match this font. And in regex, you can match something, or you just find it. But if you want to extract something, you need to make groups. In this case, we want to get whatever is before this text. The way to capture anything in regex is with the dot. So the dot captures anything except the new line. So if we do this, then as you can see the difference. Before we only got the Boulder button. When we put a dot, we get one character, whatever character it is, plus the thing we had before. But we don't want just one character, we want many characters. We want plenty of them. The way to do this with regex is with quantifiers. Asterisk can mean 0 or more, plus can mean 1 or more. In this case, we're expecting 1 or more. So we can, if we do this, we're going to find. In this case, this text is not the actual HTML. The actual HTML has no new lines. So this would actually be like this. So it would all be one line, which is not so good for us because the more lines we get, Which line? All of it. If everything is in one line, when we do this dot, we get absolutely everything. But we don't want all of this thing. We want just this part, this MBSP, or the number that will be here. And we know that the thing that comes before this is going to be this span, this HTML section. So we can put a left bound here. So we know that first there's going to be a span text, a span section. Then it's going to be the information that we want. And then there's going to be this bouldering people waiting. And with this, we locate the information we want. And now we just have to capture it. To capture it, here we can see how we can capture a group. We can put a parenthesis. So if we, for example, put a parenthesis surrounding the text, we can see that this whole thing is matched. See the match? And the group is the text. So you can use a Python Regex library or Node.js Python library or any language you use. Importing the Regex library, you can extract the group that you want. But in which case, we don't want to extract the text, we want to extract the number. So this one, we'll put a parenthesis surrounding this. This is the information that we're going to extract. And in this way, we can extract this. In this case, not a number because it's supposed to be 0, but for some reason, HTML converted that into this strange character. But this will extract the information we want. And then in our code, we can make an if condition. If this character is this strange one, we can ignore it. We can say it's 0. If we get a number, then we get the number.
Cool. Looks easy now. Looks easy.
This one is easy.
Sorry.
This one is relatively easy because you know what's going to be on the left side of it and on the right side of it. You have two things that are fixed, and the information you want is always going to be in the middle. In this case, it's more or less easy to find it. It can be a bit risky because if in the HTML this gets repeated, if you have other cases where you have a span something and then folder button, then you're going to have a lot of matches and a lot of groups. And to know which one to get would be a bit more trickier. In this case, we're counting on the fact that probably this will not be repeated. So we can make a safe bet that whatever happens between span and Boulder button will be the number that we want.
Yeah, this Boulder button, this is very specific and yeah, kind of lucky that it's there. Cool.
The other one is,
Oh, I was just going to say, because obviously these are German bouldering gyms. What I actually did when I was testing the notebook myself and actually trying the regex and scraping for myself, I made the mistake of translating the website first. So when Anne dropped the hint of searching for the Boulder waiting, I was searching for it in the translated version. And I couldn't find it. So in case anyone gets stuck there, just know that's because your page is translated.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it needs to be exactly the match that the website is showing in this very moment. If it's dynamic or translated, then it wouldn't work.
Finding the percentage number after the number and then the div. But unfortunately, this is quite a repeated pattern in the HTML. There's a lot of cases where you have a percentage and then this. So if you have a regex like this, you will have a lot of matches and you will probably not know which is the one you actually want. So this is a bit tricky. In this case, you have to rely on the class that we mentioned earlier.
So would you encapsulate two regexes in this case? You would find the bigger chunk and then use another regex on the number.
Of course. Maybe that's a good practice. What I actually did was to find this first, and then anything to capture all of this, whatever it was, until I found this diff with a style, with this style feature or this style characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And then inside of here, then I could find the percentage.
So, and how did you find it then? Would you save the first chunk in a variable and then go over it again, or did you do it in one go? Or am I revealing too much?
The solution is right there. You can read it if you want. What I do is first get the class, the big chunk of the class, and then get everything until we see a diff, which includes a percentage. It was a bit complicated, and I didn't write this on one go. It took me like 10 minutes on the Regex website to find this. This is trial and error mostly. With trial and Regex, you don't find it. Maybe you change. Something that helped me was the question mark. The question marks makes the Regex lazy, or it only finds. For example, if we have this, find every character, repeat it any number of times lazily, means that it will find the minimum amount of characters until it finds this. If we don't put the percentage, it will get the whole HTML. The last symbol like this will be at the end of the HTML. So you will get everything. And one way to make it go until the first occurrence or the least amount of times as possible is by using the question mark. Once we have the Regex, we can write it here. Import the Regex. You write R here, and then you write the Regex there. And then you can obtain your matches from the HTML. And that's basically it. First you scrape it, you get the whole big HTML, and then you use Regex to get the information you want, to get the groups that you want, and then you have the number.
Also impressive with your long regex that you actually were able to capture the whole thing in one go. Pretty cool. I always dissect things if it's getting too big, but it makes the code less complicated if you manage to put it in one thing, where you have less code, but you have more condensed code. I hope everybody learned a lot and you don't struggle too much. And yeah, let us know if you run into errors, if you have very creative error messages. That's also always cool to learn something new, I think. Because yeah, just shout out to us on the Slack channel. I'm going to show you one more thing here. I'm going to take over the screen.
Well, we have some more slides after the...
Oh, you do? Okay, go for it.
We can show now or later.
No, go for it. That's fine.
Are you seeing my presentation?
Yeah, I do. Coding time, it says.
Yeah, probably we didn't manage to finish everything. We hope you liked it. We hope it was easy to understand. And we hope you're not too lost with the information. Maybe, as we said, we're going to have to make another meetup with the second part of this because there was not enough time. Maybe as a summary, once we do this, once we scrape the data, we get the regex. How do we store the data? So first, we used to store it in a file locally, and then we used AWS S3 as a storage service to keep it on the cloud. And then how to keep the code running every 15 minutes. This is usually done with a clock. You have a script running all the time, and you have a clock that is activated every specific time whenever you want it. It works quite well. And then the next question is, how do we keep a script running all the time? And you can either do this on your computer, on your server, or on the cloud, which would be meaning probably the third or fourth meetup that we do. As a preview for the next meetups, once we have some data that we can store, that get incremented, then we started with the data cleaning, data processing, which will show you how we do everything. We put the content of Springlet to show the plots, and we show you everything that we did in the next meetups. Like Heroku, the deployment of Heroku, Docker containers, machine learning. We have a lot of information to show you. And in summary, I think some people left already. Thank you so much for attending this. You can connect with us on Twitter. We have our handles there. We're happy to connect, to answer any questions. If you want to even collaborate on this, we can, of course, discuss it. Stay tuned at PyLadies Berlin for the next meetups we do on this topic. And thank you for attending.
Cool, thank you. I learned definitely a lot today. And we have nice feedback for you in the chat. So yeah, before you go, I already posted another link on the chat. So if you can, if you have time, and also if you don't, just make time for it because it's worth it. And here is a feedback form that we would like you to fill out, because this is how we learn as well. This is how you can support us, by letting us know what other topics you maybe want to hear, what was not good, what was good, how can we improve. And if you want, if you are living in a town where there is no PyLadies, you can open up your own chapter and be a PyLadies member and register for it. And yeah, check out PyLadies on the web, wherever we're most actively, on the Meetup page or in the Slack channel, or on Twitter, not so much on Facebook, and email takes us some time sometimes to reply because we're all volunteers. So rather catch up on Slack with us if you have questions on this. And also we're going to post the slides and the video. So thank you, everybody. I think it's time to roll up here. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
If you have any questions, we can quickly answer them if you want.
So stop recording. Thanks for everybody. It was great to meet you here. Bye.